Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about layoffs. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, what is your experience with layoffs? Did it affect your psyche and did it change your commitment to potential future employers? I have been part of a layoff actually. It didn't really affect me psychologically, I would say. And I think that that has mostly to do with that something I that I always try to do as much as I can is to look at the world for what it is, basically, and sort of understand why things work the way they do usually. And so when I go and work for a company, I understand that this is a symbiotic relationship. Basically, the company owes me only what they're willing to give me, of course, within the confines of the law and so forth, but and then the salary that we agree upon. And just as I owe them, a certain degree of loyalty and not giving away company secrets or things like that, but basically that it's a contract, it's a business arrangement. I do my part, they do their part, and then there's a symbiotic relationship that forms. But some people become emotionally attached to certain things, and I do, of course, just as everybody else. But I wouldn't say that I do that towards a specific company or an employer, because even though I might like my boss or I might like my coworkers and so forth, I understand that we're all here to make money, we're all here to survive, we're all here to do something together because it brings some type of value, right? And if the ecosystem or like the economy changes or there are things that can happen that might be outside of some people's control, and in some cases it's within their control, but it makes sense from a business perspective, etc., etc. I understand that it's a very real risk for me to get laid off. And that's why I tell people, try to always make sure that you have a relevant CV, that you never put yourself in that sort of situation where you mentally go lethargic and you go, yeah, I don't have to really care, or like you become apathetic and go that, yeah, I'm just gonna write it out, I'm not gonna learn new things or keep myself relevant and so forth, because that can cause a bit of a problem for you if you do get laid off. And so when I got laid off, basically there were absolutely some people who felt that, yeah, well, this was, it's, of course, I mean, I felt it too. It's not fun to get laid off, but while some people had to sit and sort of reflect and like process things, the same afternoon that we got the message that the office was going to get closed down, I immediately went on LinkedIn and started looking for the next thing. Because I know, as I've said in a few videos before, guys, to me it's everything is a peak or a slope, and sometimes things go up and things go down, but the only constant is movement. As long as I keep moving or do something and try to make constructive and positive decisions on behalf of myself and those around me, even if something is bad right now, things will go and hopefully become better if I continue. And so that's basically how I look at it. The only time I really felt that something has affected my way of thinking in terms of how I behave with employers and so forth has to do with a concept that or rather something that I've always held to be true, which is that you should never listen to what people say. Look at what they do, because people might say one thing and do another one. And the big lesson that the big insight that you can have, I hope, is that even when people have good intentions, they might still be in the wrong or do things that can be very harmful to you. So even a classic one is, your mother or your father might love you very, very much and like want to do all the best things for you, but their value system might force them to do things out of love that are not so positive, like overfeed their kids or not accept homosexuality or some type of sexual preference or stuff like that, because or like that you're not religious, or that you want to go in to have friends that are not so good for you. Like they're trying to protect you, or they're trying to do something that they think is good but might actually end up harming you, if that makes sense. And so the the real scenario that I had for this was when I was working at the company. We had very much this sort of mindset where everybody's a part of a family. They had like, it was almost like a little cult, honest to God, in my opinion. Like everybody, they didn't say people weren't resources, they were family members. When they announced that someone was going to come to the office, they said they didn't say welcome to the office. It was a rule that you should say welcome home, because this is a home and we are family, and so forth and so forth, that sort of deal, right? And everything is very woke, very PC, and there are no bad ideas. It's exactly what you think it was, basically. And me, who is the cold-hearted cynic, was always have like some thoughts around this. Basically, think to myself that this is a nice environment for. I can imagine that a lot of people who have some type of need for this emotional connection, this is going to be a good and nice and fine environment for them. But I also know that the business is not run on smiles and dreams. You have to produce results, and the problem that always happens when, in my opinion, when you go too far on these sort of values is that you're not going to produce much in terms of results, which is of course what happens, and the company doesn't do so well and so forth. And I always tell people that people will short term you can give people words and smiles and happiness, and that will work for a little while, but if you fail consistently, if you're part of a team that continues failing, that's going to rot away more. People like to win more than they like to being pampered with positivity and words. It's my experience. Usually you have to have a balance of both. And so they keep on telling me, you can be yourself and you let your hair down. Well, I don't have any hair now, but you see the sort of thing that I'm talking about, right? It's an environment where they're trying to make you put yourself out there. And so I break my own principle, and I realized that was a big mistake, because the people that I work with here, we don't say, I can't make friends with everybody. The only person who can truly be themselves at all times is a person who will fit in anywhere. And I know for a fact that I'm not that sort of person. I will make a lot of friends with a lot of people, but some people I will rub the wrong way. It's a fact. And unfortunately, one of the people that I rubbed the wrong way with my personality and way of behaving was one of the founders of the company, and a few select people across the company. And what I then see is that, well, all that positivity and so forth, you go from being part of that, being included in that, to being very isolated very quickly and being exposed to some very tough situations, and then ultimately you can't basically be within the company, even though at the same time everybody's saying everybody's accepted, everything is lovely-dovey, so forth and so forth. We're all family, we're sticking it out, and we're going to sacrifice for our employees, etc., etc. All of those things were being said at one point, but behind the scenes, that's not really how things were being run. In the public eye, that's how it was working, but behind closed doors, it worked a slightly different way. So what I want you to take away from this is that I've never really been affected by a layoff, even though I've been part of one, because I look at this as a symbiotic relationship. It's not something that I would ever expect from a company, so it can't really affect me in a psychological way. The only thing that has really affected me is when I sort of have, as I've said, like being laid off, or not being laid off, but getting fired or something like that. It's not like a whole company's getting or like a whole department is going to be shut down. It's more that I'm in an environment where I don't really fit in, right? And it follows the principle that I usually follow. Don't listen to what people say. Look at what they do. Because as I said, the big lesson here is that, guys, even if your boss is the nicest person in the world, or your coworkers are all lovely and so forth, remember that there is no such thing as unconditional. There are always conditions for everything. Even love, friendship, hate, whatever it is, there are always conditions. And you will do well if you can figure out what the conditions are before you start believing in what other people are saying. Because trust me when I say this, they can say something at one point and change their mind in 2 minutes, given the right circumstances. Have a great day.